people from the land they were going to conquer, because if he left a few of them there, they were going to lead them to worshiping other idols. And a lot of times, God continually tells us to get rid of everything that just hinders us, and we just remove 99% of it. But that 1% stays there to grow. You know, God tells us break up with that person. They're like, okay, we're not together, but I still kiss them every here and then. I still hold their hand here and then. See, when God says let it go, let it go. And that's why Elijah had to be done with all these prophets that were worshiping other gods. Because if he left one or two, they were going to lead the nation back into sin. So what happens is that Elijah got rid of all these people. And when the queen of this nation heard what Elijah did, she's like, all right, get all the army and let's go get them. Let's go hunt them down. So Elijah ran. Okay? And this is where Elijah became like a semi-win, too, little crybaby. Okay? This is what it says in 1 Kings 19:3 and 4. It says the following. Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. And they're like, come on, how many of us would be afraid? You know? It was like, boom, God sends fire from heaven. And here comes like a bunch of people after you. And like, how many of us would be afraid? They're like, hey, you guys better step back before I burn all you guys. Right? Well, Elijah, he got scared. He went to Bathsheba, a town of Judah, and left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the desert, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I had had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors. Does that sound like anyone? I can probably tell you that there is at least 30 of you guys that have said that to God. And you're like, I didn't say I'm not better than my ancestors. No. But you have asked God that you don't want to live anymore. The situation has gotten so bad. And maybe you have lost hope so much that you have come to a point where you have told God, I don't want to live anymore. Life hurts too much. I can't change, God. God, the situation in my family is just too difficult. God, you know, I can't take it anymore. I don't want to live. Take my life. And I know that there's a bunch of us that have felt like this. But see, this is important for you to come and to be able to tell God. I have always believed that whatever you truly feel inside, you need to tell God. He already knows. And what we do a lot of times is that we hold it in. You know, we expected God to do something and He doesn't do it and we don't tell Him. We hold it in. And what happens is that we hold a grudge against God. And this is why a lot of people start blaming God for certain situations, for certain circumstances. We hold something against God because we don't learn to come and express it. You want to know something? Whenever I get mad because of something that happened, and I get a little bit bothered, and I'm like, God, you know, you said this was going to happen, and it didn't happen. God, you said that you were going to take me somewhere, and I was going to become something, and look at where I'm at. Whenever I feel like this, I actually do go and tell Him. He already knows. And a lot of us, we don't do that. And Elijah learned it. Yes, he was scared. He was all this. He's not like, you know what, God, these people don't want to listen. Just take my life already. You don't forget these people. Take it. And we need to learn to express exactly how we feel towards God. This brings relief. And it allows the work inside of you to begin. Okay? The fourth one is the following. After you have done this, you have retreated to renewal. What you must do is look to God's presence. We need to look to God's presence. Why do we need to look to God's presence? See, Elijah, God told him, this is the amazing thing. When Elijah retreated for renewal, you know, when Elijah retreated for renewal, it says that an angel came and comforted him. It says that God was feeding him. He's not like, here, eat. He would go back to sleep, wake up, oh, more food. He didn't have to do anything. See, and God will do that. But see, Elijah understood, I need to look for God's presence. I need it. I need it. It's something that I just really, really need inside of me. And look at what he did in 1 Kings 19, 11, 12. I really, really love this, okay? He says, go out and stand before the mountain, the Lord told him. As Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. You know, it's crazy. God tells him, hey, I want you to go stand up there and go look for my presence, and go look for my word. I want to tell you something. I want to spend time with you, but I want you to go up there and wait and look for it. So Elijah's up there, right? He's waiting. I'm like, okay, God, you know, I mean, if you're such a big and awesome God, then it has to be something big and very noticeable. So then all of a sudden, this huge wind comes and hits the mountain, and rocks start falling everywhere. And he looks and he's like, no, that's not God. And then an earthquake comes and just shakes everything. And he looks at it and says, nope, that's not God. And then fire came and just went everywhere. And he's all like, no, that's not God. You know, and it says that it wasn't until, and after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. And that's where he realized that it was God. You guys want to, this is so important. You guys want to know why it seems that God doesn't speak to you? Yeah, like really think about it. How is it that I can hear God's voice and you guys can't? Am I anything more than you guys? No. Does God love me more than you guys? Mm-mm. I'm not better than you. It's the simple thing that a lot of times we tend to look for God in areas and in things that we are not going to find Him in. You need to look for God's presence. But let me tell you, He's not going to be where you want to find Him. Oh, I need me a Christian boyfriend. God's not going to do it. Oh, I need me a girl that just loves God above all things, that has a beautiful voice, and you know, that has this figure. God's not going to be there. You need to learn to look for God, but He's not. You need to understand that He's not going to be where you want Him to be. And you want to know something, that when you do start listening to God's voice, when you do start listening and going into God's presence, you know, this is very key, because the closer, the deeper into His presence you get, the more you are able to understand who you are. Do you get this? That you are not going to be your full self unless you are as deep as you can into God's presence. The deeper you are into God's presence, the more you know about who you are and about why you have gone through what you've gone through. You want to find out what's your purpose? Where you need to go? Who you need to date? Where you need to be? Get into God's presence. Because let me tell you something, you know, and I used to do it when I was a youngster. When I was like 15, 16, and I would meet a girl that's really pretty. And I'd be like, God, I promise you I'll read the Bible 3 times a day now. And I promise that I'll pray for 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll be more active in church. And then I promise, and I would promise all this stuff. And maybe I would keep them. But God would say, no, that's not where I'm at. That's not where I'm at. See, and we tend to look God in these things that we are not going to find Him. You want to know where you are going to find Him? You know, we tend to look from, oh, I'm going to go to camp, listen to God's word, and listen to His voice, and He's going to touch me. And yes, He probably is. But you know where the greatest changes are going to happen in your life? In your room, alone. When there isn't a thunderstorm. When there isn't an earthquake. When there isn't fire running around. When there's just a gentle whisper, and it's you and God. You want to find strength and renewal to get through what you're going through? Go to your room and listen to that gentle whisper. It's in God's presence where I'm able to understand myself. You see, and once you experience God's presence, it feels so good and so amazing. You don't want to get out. You don't want to leave. Because it's in those moments where everything that's going on doesn't matter. Where the pain and the hurt that you've been feeling just disappears. Where you don't even feel like you're in it. You feel like you're with God. And that's where you feel that you belong. It's God's presence. And the reason why a lot of us tend to get up and stumble and continue to stumble and never change. And we're never going to let that person go. And no matter how much God tells us to let them go. And we're never going to change these moods and this character. And you want to know why? Because we have not learned to live for God in that gentle whisper that you're only going to find behind doors on your own. This is the last thought I want to give you guys. It says, when the odds are against you, have assurance that you're not alone. Have confidence in God's way and look for Him to win. Look for Him to win. You will overcome. You will overcome the circumstance. If you look for Him to win in a gentle whisper that you're only going to find behind closed doors.